Birmingham Sports
with Ben Ellis.
This is BHBN Radio.
It is the Monday after from Birmingham Sport, BHBN Radio, weekly look at the weekend's action that we brought you across the wards. Of course, BHBN is Birmingham's hospital radio network, and we like to think we're your match day alternative. And we're a little bit different this week, is because we're recording this straight after games that we've covered in the Premier League. I'm at Villa Park. And we have at Molineux, Jonathan Wimbush and Ed Mackay. Ed will be joining us very shortly. I've been watching Villa, and John and Ed have been watching Wolves, and we'll look back on Blues and West Brom from the weekend as well, the action in the Championship. We brought you live coverage across the wards of Aston Villa's 2-1 victory against Burnley. We'll talk about that a bit later, but as Ed and John are at Molineux, are with us this afternoon. Tell us all about what you saw at Molineux this afternoon. Welcome along, John and Ed.
Yes, thank you, Ben. Basically, it was a 1-1 draw. It was very tetchy, very testy, and Marshall Manetzi got Wolverhampton Wanderers in front, but Van Heck equalised with 5 minutes to go. Frustrations over the referee, frustrations over certain decisions, and Vita Pereira got sent off, the Wolves manager, for protesting a little bit too much in the first half. So yeah, in the end, the points are shared, but it's still not good enough for Wolves.
Has that been cleared up then? Because the notification came through to us that it was a Verbruggen own goal for Wolves. So like it hit the post or the bar or something and then bounced off the keeper. Ed, is that right?
Yeah. Okay, so so Manetzi, he rifled it towards the goal. It actually hit the bar, came back, hit the keeper, and went in. But there's no doubt about Manetzi's intentions when the ball left his boot.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you're giving it to Manetzi. It seems odd though to me, as I say, you've seen it. When a manager protests, he gets a yellow card. Was this a straight red for Vitor Pereira? Had he said something particularly bad?
So the problem was that about 30 seconds before the foul that Belieber actually did, there was a little bit of a strange incident in the middle of the park where a Brighton player held up a Wolves player. The ref didn't make any decision. All the Wolves players stopped as if to say, that must be our ball. And Brighton broke on them and had a shot on goal. They then recycled possession, started running down the left wing. Belieber cleared out a Wolves player and he got booked for it. But Pereira was still angry about what had happened just before it because they could have conceded from it. So he was pretty apoplectic and he was saying it should be a red card, because he just did that once already. So I think it's because of the way he was protesting and the fact that he was pulling up the referee's previous decision that he gave him a straight red.
Okay. The wait goes on for a win for Wolves, and a similar story to obviously last week, leading at Tottenham, but the win was snatched away from them. The longer this goes on, the worse it's going to get, isn't it?
They asked for it. I actually predicted it. I said to Jonathan, and I'm sure he'll vouch for me in a second when he comes in, I said, if they play this way in the second half, they're going to concede a goal. They came out in the second half 1-0 up, and they didn't even try to get into Brighton's half. And they literally sat with two banks of 5, essentially. For a lot of the second half, they had 10 men in their own box. And if you attract that kind of pressure, something's going to give, I think. I don't know if that's how Jonathan saw it, but certainly that was my interpretation of the second half.
The impression you're giving, Ed, John, against any team that's bad enough, but a Brighton team who can pass you to death, that's just asking for trouble, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those. It baffled me the way Wolves came out in the second half, and obviously with James Miller coming on, who Ed knows very, very much, who knows a lot about.
Yeah, I do too. But I do too, by the way. Play for my team.
Yeah, he was a former Villa player. Yeah, and Ed actually predicted that he'd go in for a tackle, and 5 minutes later he did. Uh, when you've got players like that, I mean, Welbeck tried to get into space as well. You had chances to go up the other end of the pitch yourself and put the ball in and score a second goal for yourselves. And I mean, one particular incident was when Agbadou managed to get the ball. He was racing through on goal, and he just ran into a wall of defenders. He literally moved towards the defenders instead of away from them, and that was a bit perplexing. Because you had all the space on the other side of the pitch to have a shot, and you decide to walk into their players and then have a little bit of a moan when they've tackled you. It's like, well, you had space on the other side. You could have got a shot away. You could have passed to a teammate, and you did neither.
And to go into the second international break still without a win, I mean, alarm bells were ringing, Ed, quite a while ago, but this is only going to make it worse, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is disappointing today because one thing I will say is you're right to point out that Brighton have got that capability, but actually Brighton were very poor today as well.
Okay.
And the win was there for Wolves. That's what I think was really frustrating for the Wolves fans in the second half. They weren't trying to actually capitalise and make sure they got the 3 points. They were just consolidating and thinking, can we get away with this 1-0? Which is, I just think it's a bit naive, really, because you know what's going to happen if you do that. And they weren't being outplayed. They were just asking for trouble. And actually, Brighton still failed to break them down. Kirsta, the commentator, actually said, oh, maybe Wolves are going to get away with this on the 85th minute. And of course, in the 86th minute, they Brighton looped the ball in and Van Heck nodded it on. But it was a clear tactic from Brighton. They had ran out of ideas. They brought James Milner on, and he sat at the back. And they sent a centre-back to stand in the Wolves box to try and get his nut on something. And it worked. So it wasn't as if Brighton were passing them to death or anything like that. They just played the odds, basically. If you're going to sit in your box, we'll keep putting the ball in the mixer and see if we can score.
And what was the mood like as the final whistle went? Was it toxic in there? Was there an obvious frustration, or is there just an acceptance of what's going on from the Wolves fans now?
Actually, I was just saying this to Jonathan. I think the Wolves seemed quite lucky in that the manager had been sent off, so there was a bit of a strange dynamic. And secondly, it's one of the worst refereeing performances I've seen all season, and all of the vitriol was targeted at the referee because he was awful. He had a 15-minute period where he sent a manager off and booked 4 Brighton players after not having booked anyone for 20 minutes, even though there were fouls actually happening. Then he didn't make a decision for the rest of the game. I mean, there were players down with injuries, and he's just didn't know what to do. Looked like a rabbit caught in the headlights. It was so poor. What's the only word? That is the word for it. He was just poor today. I don't know if Jonathan agrees with that, but that's where the frustration was coming from the Wolves crowd.
Yeah, I think Manetzi especially was being targeted. We noticed a few tackles flying in on Marshall Manetzi, especially after he was the one who, whether it's his goal or whether it's a goalkeeper own goal, remains to be seen. But he was the most influential player in that move that put Wolves 1-0 up. But I noticed in the second half, we both noticed in the second half that Manetzi was on the ball. Tackles were flying in. He was on the ground being treated by physios at least twice that I could count. And the referee just allowed the game to carry on before letting the physios on. And Brighton almost profited from one of those when Manetzi was down in the attacking box. Brighton almost scored down the other end.
Yes, Jared Gillett, the referee, by the way, is coming for particular criticism. Contrast with the referee that we saw here at Villa Park today, but we'll get onto that. If you go to our BHBN Sport YouTube channel, you will hear the best of the action from all of the games that we've covered this weekend, as well as where we're able to get the thoughts from the managers immediately following the game. It's the Monday after here on Birmingham Sport, BHBN Radio, looking back at the weekend's action. We're doing it from the grounds this week. Very experimental indeed. We're going to talk about Aston Villa getting their second win of the season in the Premier League. 4 wins in a row, by the way, in all competitions. After this.
BHBN Radio has been going since 1952. It is run entirely by volunteers, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Right now, BHBN needs friends like you to ensure it can broadcast to hospitals, care homes, and into the community for many more years to come. You can help by donating through our Just GoFundMe account. It's easy. Simply go to our website, bhbn.net, scan our GoFundMe QR code, and in a few clicks, you can help us out. If you're a taxpayer, you can give 25% more through gift aid at no extra cost to you.
BHBN Radio.
It is the Monday after here on Birmingham Sport BHBN Radio. I'm Ben Ellis here at Villa Park, having just seen Aston Villa win by 2-1 against Burnley. Ed Mackay and Jonathan Wimbush are at Molineux. They've just seen a 1-1 draw between Wolves and Brighton. I mean, there's only me that can really talk about it amongst ourselves because I've seen the game here today. But guys, I don't want to potentially throw you under the bus by asking you questions about a game you weren't at, so I appreciate that. But it is 4 wins in a row in all competitions now for Aston Villa, and given how the season started, it's nice for them to be getting a bit of momentum now, Ed.
Yeah, well, I thought some of the talk a few weeks ago was really premature, regarding Emery and his position and stuff, because I think any football fan knows his way around a football club. He knows how to get the best out of players. They definitely did start slow, and they were having a bit of a blip, especially the not scoring thing. That is something that's going to weigh on players and fans' minds. But I always knew Emery would figure it out and he'd come good. Last week was, a solid performance and good goals, and then today it sounds like you pretty much dominated proceedings, but you'll tell us now, I'm sure.
Well, Daniel Marlin was outstanding today for Aston Villa. Got both the goals and gave Burnley a torrid time. And with Marlin in the team, they were able to do what they haven't been doing so far this season, and that's move the ball quickly through the transition. They were able to do that and create chances and cause havoc. They got a bit sloppy in the second half. There was a period where they allowed the ball to go out for long throw-ins for Kyle Walker a couple of times, which led to also a needless corner, and that's where the goal came from. Ukachukwu, who's about 7'4", amazing, rose above everybody and nodded the ball down into the net. And then it was a bit nervy. I'm always nervous at 2-0 up because the next goal's the important one. If you get it, it's game over. If they get it, it's game on. It became game on, and Scott Parker decided he was going to throw everything at Villa, but they didn't really create anything of note for Emi Martinez to have to do from 2-1, which was reassuring. In the end, it slowed down because Emi Buendia caught a blow in the face from the substitute Jean Fleming, and I'm amazed, quite frankly. If you see this later on, I'm amazed VAR didn't have a look at it because they looked like there was intent there. To me, it was deep in stoppage time, which meant we went right over the 5 minutes, not knowing when the game was going to end. So it did get a bit nervy, but the whistle blew. 3 points, as we say, 4 wins in a row in all competitions. What I like about the way things have turned around, and I say that with a bit of caution, John, because your next defeat is only around the corner. But Unai Emery showed after the Sunderland game a couple of weeks ago that he is a top-level manager, because he has literally, well, it's my interpretation of it anyway, that he has said to the players, that is not acceptable as long as I'm here at Aston Villa. And he came out, he said their play was lazy. Whether he called them lazy or not, that's open to interpretation. But top managers get a reaction from players after that. It's the ones who don't get the message across where the players can down tools. And there's definitely, John, been a reaction from the Villa players since Unai Emery called them out at Sunderland.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that 1-1 draw with Sunderland was the turning point for Aston Villa and Unai Emery. And that's when I think he said, basically, enough is enough. We need to start getting wins. And sure enough, since then, Aston Villa have been doing well, both in Europe and in the Premier League. Great win today against Burnley, which most people would say is a team that Villa should be beating. Obviously, Burnley, being in the bottom half of the table, and just been promoted really. So you'd expect Villa, who's in Europe, to be beating those kind of teams. But yeah, I mean, it's a win. It's a win after a European game, which
good point.
was a lot of frustrations for Villa fans last season. How Villa couldn't capitalise on European victories by following that up with Premier League victories. So at least it's a step in the right direction, and I think I wouldn't say that the season's saved. It's too early to say that, but it's a step in the right direction for Villa.
And important, Ed, that they got the victory today, because if you just look at it in Premier League terms, not even the Europa League fixtures that have got coming up for Aston Villa after the international break, it's Spurs, City, Liverpool, and then Bournemouth, who are flying. So it was important to get that win today.
Yeah, and the other thing about the idea that there are teams that you should win against, that comes with its own pressure. The idea that you play a promoted team and that just guarantees you 3 points. Well, every game is a scalp to them if they win it. So Burnley, and also Burnley are no mugs. They stormed the Championship, so they have a very strong defensive outfit. Scott Parker's obviously pretty defensively minded because he didn't concede 2 goals in any game last season.
Right.
So he does know what he's doing. And like I say, it brings its own pressure, because if people expect you to win, then and you don't, then you're under even more scrutiny, aren't you? So it is an important win, but like you say, that's a monstrous run to come back with after the international break as well. So yeah, up to 13th today. So that's more like it, I would say.
Yeah, I'll go with that, and I will sleep soundly tonight. There's no doubt about it. The highlights of the game and the thoughts of Unai Emery will be on our YouTube channel, which we ask you to click like and subscribe. And thank you for the numbers, by the way. We've been looking at the numbers for that. We've been very, very pleased and impressed with that as far as that is concerned. So that's the Premier League dealt with here on a different version of the Monday after this week, because we're on location. So if we feel like we're rushing things, it's because I'm conscious that some steward could kick us out at any stage. So we're looking around. So we are moving things on very quickly. We'll come back in just a moment and we'll look at the action from the weekend in the Championship.
BHBN Radio has been going since 1952. It is run entirely by volunteers, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Right now, BHBN needs friends like you to ensure it can broadcast to hospitals, care homes, and into the community for many more years to come. You can help by donating through our Just GoFundMe account. It's easy. Simply go to our website, bhbn.net, scan our GoFundMe QR code, and in a few clicks, you can help us out. If you're a taxpayer, you can give 25% more through gift aid at no extra cost to you.
BHBN Radio.
It is the Monday after from BHBN Radio, Birmingham Sports. I'm Ben Ellis here at Villa Park, having just seen Villa win. Ed Mackay and Jonathan Wimbush are at Molyneux. They've just seen Wolves draw 1-1 with Brighton, but the action got underway with what, for me, is one of the most ridiculous taglines in football these days, the Hollywood Derby between Wrexham and Birmingham City on Friday night. If ever there was a performance of two halves, Ed, it was from Blues on Friday night, because they were shocking in the first half, but got it together in the second.
Yeah, and it seems to be a bit of a feature of Birmingham's play at the moment, doesn't it? That they only really seem to be playing for 45 minutes. I mean, you and I discussed this previously, that maybe there was a little bit of, I don't know, overexcitement about the idea of pushing on so quickly. And I think even Kim did say that it'd be far more useful to consolidate themselves within the Championship. And I think that's true of Wrexham as well, by the way. I don't think this idea that
Yeah.
there's this clamour to get somewhere just to get a big payday. That's not how you build a sustainable run with a football team. That's not how you create ongoing success. You need to establish yourself in certain leagues. I mean, another team we discussed last week, Coventry City, a very good example of this, in fact. But yeah, they really need to put it in for 90 minutes because it seems like they either turn up without any ideas and then they get their act together, or they throw it all into the first half and then they die off. So I wonder if that's something that Chris Davies does need to look at in terms of just maintaining their levels for the full game.
Yeah, they do need more 90-minute performances. I think there's no doubt about that. I was looking at this, John, on Friday night. The average age of the current Blues first team squad is 26.1 years. And Damari Gray's 3 years older than that. And he looks 10 times the player at the moment that most of them are in the Blues side. He can't do that on his own for 46 games.
No, absolutely not. And it's one of those. You mentioned that Birmingham only seem to be playing for 45 minutes a game. The first half was terrible from a Birmingham perspective. I was watching it on TV, and Wrexham were all over them. Got their goal, went 1-0 up at half time, and I don't know what Chris Davies said to him at half time in the dressing room, but 20 seconds after the restart, they equalised, and then they seem to be more likely to score a second. Wrexham's defending was resolute, and they did well. And in the end, I think a 1-1 draw was a fair result for both teams. But they need to be. I mean, my question when their goal went in was, why couldn't they have started like that? Why wait till half time before you start playing? Because this is the Championship. It's very tight. A win could get you up like 5 places at times if results elsewhere go your way. And it's one of those where the best player seems to be one of the oldest players, and then you're thinking, well, what are the other players doing? Why aren't they running about? Why aren't they making a tackle? Why aren't they scoring the goals? And it's a difficult one for Chris Davies.
Look, I'm not saying I'm starstruck or anything, but Villa legend Gary Thompson has just put thumbs up to me as he's just left the press box. I was like, that's it. That's made my day now, that has.
There you go. You
As far
definitely
as
sleep
that's
well
concerned, I'm
tonight
like,
now, Ben.
come on. I definitely will sleep well tonight. I mean,
You actually raise a good point about Birmingham because if there was one word I'd use to describe that first half performance against Wrexham, it's immature.
Yeah, I agree.
They just refused to hold on to possession of the ball. It was so strange, and there was no coherence to what they were doing. It's like every single player, certainly in the midfield, had been given a different game plan. So when some of them are running forward and some of them are staying still, some of them and the passing, it was so sloppy in the first half, and you thought, what's happened here? Have they had a drink on the way up?
Well, I think it's relevant. I think it's relevant as well. We talk about the weekend that we've just seen, but I think we should go back to midweek as well with Blues against Sheffield Wednesday at home. That was the strangest atmosphere I can remember at Birmingham City since these owners took over. Really, it was odd in there, and you just there's just a sense that from the not the hardcore, but there's a sense among the Blues fans that they're not quite sure where they're going now this season, whether they should stick or twist in games. And I thought, I just sat there watching it on Tuesday night, and I thought something's up here.
I think it comes from that mismanagement of expectation that we were talking about.
Yeah.
They should have put a lid on that idea that they were going to be trying to get into playoffs early doors, and it's kind of filtered down a little bit now, hasn't it? Because I think that strange atmosphere is it comes from a realization that actually we may well have stormed League One, but that doesn't mean that we're ready to really, really compete in the Championship. And you can see that, like you say, their best player is Damari Gray. And the reason he's their most dynamic player at the moment is because he knows the Championship inside out. I mean, he's been a Premier League player, so he knows.
Premier League winner.
Yeah, exactly. And he knows how to control a game and how to be savvy. And I think there's too many players out there that don't know the in-game management that's required in the Championship because it is very, very physical. League One is, there's a lot of Route One teams in that league. Here, people they come to play, and it tires you out when you're getting dragged from one side of the pitch to the other side of the pitch constantly. It's about managing that in the game, and Damari Gray knows how to do that, but a few of the other players don't. So this sort of management of expectation needs to come. I mean, Chris Davies speaks very, very well.
Yeah.
But if people are going on the pitch and not understanding exactly what's required for 90 minutes, then that's his job. He needs to get that out of them.
Absolutely. Our own Kim Smith was up at the racecourse ground on Friday night, braving Storm Amy. And if you go to our YouTube channel, you can hear Kim's reports and the thoughts of Chris Davies immediately following. But it is the Monday after from Birmingham Sport, BHBN Radio. Like we said, we don't know when we're going to get kicked out of our respective seats by the stewards. Well, I'm guessing Jonathan Wimbush is kind of hoping that we're going to, because we're going to West Bromwich Albion and a shocker of a performance at Millwall, John. There's no other way of putting that.
It absolutely was. And, I don't know what had happened. Obviously, I was in the studio on Saturday with Phil, on the show. And all I was getting, with no context whatsoever of the game, was notifications saying Millwall 1-0, Millwall 2-0, Millwall 3-0. And I was thinking to myself while doing the show with Phil, what is going on? And it's one of those, considering in midweek we had beat Norwich by a goal to nil. From what I seen on the highlights on Saturday night, none of what had happened in midweek was there on Saturday, and I'm not sure why West Bromwich Albion was like that. And the word of the day yesterday for Albion was inconsistent. Obviously, me and you, Ben, have talked about inconsistent teams this season already, but West Bromwich Albion, I words fail me. I honestly don't know what had happened on Saturday with Albion.
They were bullied from the first whistle. That was the thing. And there's losing. We have to put up with losing sometimes. But when you watch your team getting bullied by the opposition, that's hard. That's hard to take, and that's hard to stomach. And Millwall did that from the first whistle. And the thing is, what you find frustrating is, that's what Millwall are going to do. It's going to be tough down there. What Millwall are like. They might be a beautifully silky, skilled football team, but it's still Millwall. They are going to chuck everything at you, and you've got to stand up. You've got to make yourself counted. And Ryan Mason said afterwards it was the worst display of the season so far, and he couldn't really say anything else. But I got the feeling that this is one of the first times that we've seen with Ryan Mason, could be a controversial statement, that he might be looking a tad out of his depth.
I have to say, I have got some words for it, because this time last week, we were talking about the fact that if you don't take your chances, you leave yourself open to dropping points. And we were talking about that in relation to the fact that West Brom should have won the game they played last weekend. This weekend, they actually can't even stake a claim to having turned up. They showed completely the wrong attitude from start to finish. Because like you said, if you go to Millwall, you know what you're going to get. They are going to be aggressive. They're going to be tenacious. You have to stand up to the bullies, like you said. And they literally looked like they didn't want to be there. It was such a strange performance. I'm not sure whether it does show. I mean, I questioned that last week, didn't I, with Ryan Mason, some of Ryan Mason's decision making. But I thought, in terms of actually getting a performance out of his players, yes, it was pitiful, because it could have been 5 or 6, and I still don't think the West Brom players would have woke up. It was like they were just like chasing shadows, or not even chasing them. It was really, it was actually a performance that the fans can be a little bit ashamed of, because I don't think they were putting it in.
This might sound a little harsh, but there's something I noticed yesterday, and you look for sort of little things that give you signals about how things are going and about the mentality. Yes, Storm Amy was blowing all around the country, but after about 2 minutes yesterday, Ryan Mason called for somebody to give him his coat so he could put his coat on because he was cold at the side of the pitch. And I just thought, oh, okay, not even up for standing on the touchline on a windy day. As I say, that might be harsh, but that apparent sign of weakness could transmit across the touchline to his players. But I thought, oh, they're in for a tough day here. There's no doubt about it. And the problem he's got as well is he's got a stew on it now for the next 2 weeks because of the international break. There will be some Albion players who will go on international duty, but most of them will be sticking around at the training ground. And he's gonna have to start getting a tune out of them soon, because if they fall into that pack within mid-table, the stronger teams in the Championship are going to pull away from them, and they're going to be in the position that they've been in for the last 2 or 3 seasons, with about a month to go, with ground to make up. And that's what they've shown so far, that they haven't been able to catch up with that. Right, we are literally towards the end here. Ed, you probably thought you were going to get away with it, but no. 2 weeks in a row, same things happened in London. What's going on, mate? What's up with Liverpool?
I have to be honest, I'm actually not surprised or upset at the performances, in all honesty. I thought that it was actually a little bit premature for people to be thinking that you can change half your team. Your players can go through the trauma of grieving their best mate. Four of your new starting 11 can play without having a pre-season with their teammates, and you can, walk the Premier League and win every game. I do think that there's something to be said for having got over the line early. And I wonder, and I don't mean this in any sort of a callous way, because obviously it hit me hard when Jota passed. And actually, I was here in the pre-season game. I was sat in this seat when the Wolves fan, held their memorial for him as well. But I do wonder if there was a little bit of that. It was still so raw at the start of the season, and you could go into the dressing room and be like, right, let's do this for Diogo and stuff. And I wonder if that's kind of died down a little bit, but everyone's still feeling somber. I'm not trying to make excuses for poor performances. They were well off the mark yesterday, and they deserve to lose the game. But there's something sort of lacking. There's no joy in the play, and when you've got that many exciting attackers on the pitch and there's no joy in what you're doing. I mean, I think Mo Salah is really struggling. I don't know if it's with his mental health or his physical performances, but he is off the mark. And if your man who puts the numbers in consistently is off the mark, you're going to be in trouble.
Is it too easy to? Sorry, Ed, because we're getting to the clock. Is it too easy to say he had a oven-ready team to come into last season, and pretty much anybody could have managed Liverpool to the Premier League title, and now he's spent a bit of money, it now is his own team, and he's finding it slightly tougher? Is it too easy to say that?
It is too easy to say that, and I'll tell you why. Because even though it was oven ready, he was stepping into some pretty big shoes, and he filled them, and he was cool, and he was calm, and he got the job done. And it wasn't like nobody challenged. Arsenal, Man City were coming for him, but we were just better than those teams. But it's just more nuanced than that. Like everything, if you change half your team, it's going to take time to gel. However, you can do the basics properly, and at the moment, defensively, they're appalling.
Okay, and that's a good place to leave it, because I think we are going to have to head off very shortly. It's an international break. If anybody has any objection, I don't want to do this show next week because international breaks go against my principles. If somebody wants on the team to put their hand up and host the show next week, by all means, you can. By whatever you want to do, you can do it. But like we said, our YouTube channel is available. Please click like and subscribe. Keep looking at the highlights packages that we're putting up there. The numbers just over the last week or so are absolutely fantastic. And do support BHBN in the appeal to keep BHBN going. It's been a good way of doing it this week. I've thoroughly enjoyed it here at Villa Park, where Villa have beaten Burnley by 2-1. Ed Mackay and Jonathan Wimbush have been at Molineux, where they saw Wolves draw 1-1 with Brighton. And on behalf of the rest of the sports team at BHBN, we'll see you soon.
Birmingham Sports
with Ben Ellis.
This is BHBN Radio.